I want some trees on this island. Alright, so we're going to do that by using the standard assets again. We are in the assets folder and we're looking into standard assets. Again, in the environment, there's something called speed tree here. Speed tree lets you add trees very quickly, just like you're painting them on. However, we're going to skip that method for now and we're going to individually put trees on one at a time so that we have more control over where they're going to be exactly and how we want to move them around and resize them. Let's start with the broadleaf tree. We are looking at these icons with the arrow next to them. I could open them up and see all the pieces that make up the tree, but I'm going to close that again. And I see there's two of them to choose from. There's a broadleaf desktop and a broadleaf mobile. If I click on one of them, I can see a preview of it down here. If I click on the broadleaf mobile, I can see it again. And I think the desktop one looks nicer. It's probably higher poly. The broadleaf mobile is probably a lower poly tree so that it will work better on a mobile device. Or if you were going to have a scene with many trees, then you might want to use the broadleaf mobile so that it has less total polygons when your game is running, which will improve performance. But I'm going to use the broadleaf desktop. You can just click on it and drag it right into your scene. If I want to, I could drag into the hierarchy, but then it's putting it at the origin way over here, which is not what I want. So I'm going to Control Z to undo that one. But I am going to drag in a couple more right onto my terrain. And then I'm going to use my F key to focus in on different parts of the terrain. And I can see right off the bat that that one is floating in the air. I'm going to click on it and just bring it down a little bit. And check the other trees real quickly. That one looks okay. Get that one in the ground a little better. I don't want the trees to look identical to each other, even though they are. The three trees are all from the same model. What we can do to make them look a little different from each other is resize them and rotate them. With this one selected, I'm going to rotate it some, tilt it, spin it around a little bit. I could change the scale, but not dramatically. The trees should be about the same size. And I'm going to make this 0.9, and since I did that for the X scale, I'm going to do it for the Y and the Z also, so that it doesn't stretch in just one direction. And I'm going to the next tree, and I'll rotate this one a little bit also. And I'll make this 1.1, 1.1, and 1.1, so a little more than 100%. And that is how easy it is to add trees. You can check out the other trees that they offer you. There are trees in the asset store. Any 3D model of a tree you could add in. These are just handy because they come with the standard assets. Now we want to add some water, and we also have some water in the standard assets. So if I go back to the environment folder and go to water, water again, I want a prefab. We'll learn what that is later. And we're going to take the Water Pro Daytime. I'm going to zoom out a little bit here. I can try to add this into the scene somewhere. You can see it moving around a little bit. I think I'll just try to drop it somewhere around here where it's kind of big. It looked big, but it's actually smaller. It was just kind of further away from the island. The first thing I'm going to do now that I have it here is put it at the origin. I'm going to raise it up, try to get it towards the center of the island. Changing your perspective is going to be helpful for that. And actually, since I know my island is 500 meters by 500 meters, starting at position 0, 0, then I can actually put my water right centered at 250 and 250. I also remember that the height that I set my island at before I started molding it was 100. So 88 is going to be just a little bit under that base level, which is what I want. I can drag it up and down more if I want, but it looks pretty good. Clearly the water is way too small. I can make it a little bigger to fill this lake. I'm going to use the scale to do that. I'm going to use 40, 140, which still isn't quite big enough, but you can see it getting larger there. Let's go a little bit bigger. 80, 180. The reason it doesn't matter about the Y scale is because the water is a plane. I also can't really see it. I see the water mode is currently refractive. If you change that to reflective, it'll be much more obvious. Now if you leave any gaps like this, then you're going to be able to see right under there. So you can't do that. You got to make sure it covers. The water I'm going to use here is also the same water that I'm going to use for the ocean around. So I'm actually going to change mine to 1000, 1000, and zoom out to see my island out in the middle of water. Just to be sure that I won't be able to see past the end of the water, I'm going to actually change this to 10,000 and 10,000. We are going to be very safe now in knowing that we can't see past the end of that water when we're looking from a camera on the island. Before we start trying to run around the island, we should organize our game objects over here. You see we have 3 trees, and you can imagine if you have 20 trees, it's going to completely fill up your hierarchy. So we want to organize those. You can do that by using a empty game object. So I'm going to right click, create empty. Notice it put it as a child of the WaterPro Daytime. You can see that indentation there. That was because I had WaterPro Time Day selected when I did that. I'm just going to drag that game object out of there so that it's not indented and not part of another object. Click on the game object and name it Trees. This will be kind of like a folder. It is something in the world. We can see it has a location, it has a transform. I'm going to actually reset that to 0, 0, 0, so it's way back in the corner there. And we're never going to see this game object, but it's going to hold my trees. So I'm going to click on the first tree, shift click on the next couple trees, drag them into trees by dropping it right on top of it. And now you can see that the trees are indented underneath the trees game object. And I can collapse that anytime I don't need to be working with them and keep them out of the way. If I want to work with them, I can open them up and work on them. Another advantage to having game objects as a child of another game object is that you can move them all at once. For instance, if I click trees and move them, they're all moving up together. I don't want to do that right now, so I'm going to press Ctrl Z, but sometimes that's very handy. In the next lesson, we finally get to add a player and run around and explore our island.